The sun is blazing over the sparkling waters of Mexico, and a luxury yacht bobs gently in the waves. On board, a group of friends is enjoying what should be a carefree adventure. Amy, cautious and thoughtful, stands apart from the rest, her eyes scanning the horizon. Her husband James is nearby, trying to keep their lively daughter, Sarah, entertained. Then there's Dan, carefree and a little tipsy, spinning his camera around and laughing with excitement. His friends, Zach and Lauren, are joking and filming everything, capturing memories they'll laugh about for years. But beneath the laughter, there's tension. Amy wears a life jacket, a quiet reminder of her fear of water after her father drowned years ago. Little do they know, the joy of this sunny day will soon twist into a battle for survival, testing friendships, courage, and their will to live. As the party on the yacht kicks into full swing, the friends decide to take a swim in the warm, open water. Laughter echoes across the deck as they dive in, the sun glinting off the waves. Amy stays on the yacht with Dan for a moment, checking on little Sarah and sharing a quiet conversation about past regrets and future hopes. Meanwhile, Zach, Lauren, and Michelle, Dan's new girlfriend, splash and play, enjoying the freedom of the sea. But suddenly, a terrifying realization hits. They forgot to lower the ladder. The yacht, a symbol of luxury and fun, becomes a looming wall separating them from safety. The endless ocean surrounds them, deceptively calm, while panic begins to ripple through the group. This simple oversight turns their playful adventure into a desperate struggle for survival, and the friends are forced to face the merciless power of the open water. Amy begins to panic, her phobia of water resurfacing like a shadow from her past. Memories of her father drowning crash into her mind, making the waves feel even more menacing. Around her, Dan, Zach, Lauren, and Michelle struggle to find a way back onto the yacht. They try using an inflatable dolphin, a flag, even a makeshift rope from their clothes, but nothing works. The ocean, usually a place of joy and freedom, now becomes an unforgiving trap. Michelle grows hysterical, convinced that sharks are circling below, while Dan desperately searches for any solution. Every failed attempt heightens the tension, showing just how quickly a carefree moment can spiral into life-threatening danger. The friends realize that in open water, human ingenuity is pitted against the raw, unpredictable force of nature, and the smallest mistake can have deadly consequences. Fatigue and fear begin to take their toll. Amy clings to Dan, shivering from cold and panic, while Michelle slips further into hysteria, forcing Lauren to calm her with a prayer. The sun beats down mercilessly, and the group grows dehydrated and exhausted. In a fleeting moment of hope, they hear a cell phone ringing, Zach's phone, dangling in his jacket. But the device is soaked, useless, and slips from Michelle's hands into the deep, crushing their chance to call for help. Desperation sets in. With no one coming to rescue them, Dan proposes a daring plan, using their clothes to make a rope to reach the yacht. The friends rally together, weaving fabric and fashioning a lifeline, knowing that their survival depends on ingenuity, courage, and teamwork in this life-or-death challenge. Their first attempts with the makeshift rope fail miserably. Zach tries to climb, but the rope snaps under his weight, sending him back into the churning water. James dives below to explore another route, but in the process, he loses the knife they were using to secure their plan and strikes his head against the hull, bleeding and disoriented. Tensions spike as fatigue and fear push the friends to the brink. In a desperate act, Zach begins punching through the yacht's side with the knife to create a handhold, only for Dan to intervene, fearing the boat will be damaged. Amid the chaos, a tragic accident occurs. Zach is accidentally stabbed and succumbs to his wounds. The grim reality hits them hard. Survival is a harsh battle against both the elements and human error. Michelle, exhausted and terrified, begins to drift away from the group, her strength failing in the vast, unforgiving sea. Panic and fatigue overtake her, and despite Dan's desperate attempts to save her, it's too late. She disappears beneath the waves. The friends are left reeling from the loss, grappling with shock, grief, and the terrifying realization that the sea is relentless. Amy clings to James, who is barely conscious, murmuring reassurances to keep both of them anchored to hope. Every minute stretches like an eternity as the storm begins to brew, dark clouds rolling across the horizon and rain lashing down, making the water even more treacherous. Survival now depends not just on skill, but sheer endurance, willpower, and quick thinking. James, weak and disoriented, starts to succumb to exhaustion and injury, his head wound from earlier now worsening. He drifts in and out of consciousness, mumbling incoherently to Amy, who struggles to keep him afloat and calm. Amy realizes the dire reality. They can't afford to stay passive. Every second counts. Meanwhile, Dan refuses to give up and dives under the water, searching desperately for the knife and anything that could aid their escape. The storm intensifies, whipping the sea into towering waves and blinding rain, turning the situation into a race against both nature and time. In this chaos, Amy's determination grows. She knows she must overcome her fear of water to save the people she loves. Night falls, and the sea becomes an unforgiving, dark expanse. Amy is left alone with James, who is now barely conscious, drifting dangerously close to the cold, crushing depths. Rain lashes down, and the waves slam against them relentlessly. Amy, heart pounding, recalls the lullaby she sang to her daughter and uses it to steady herself and keep James afloat. She understands that survival isn't just about strength. It's about focus, courage, and refusing to surrender to panic. Meanwhile, Dan, exhausted and in pain from cramping arms, resurfaces with the knife and a glimmer of hope. Their teamwork, trust, and sheer willpower are the only things keeping them alive as they fight the merciless elements. Dan seizes a bold idea. Using a broken shard of glass from his goggles, he wedges it between the board and the folding gangway, holding on despite the sharp pain cutting into his hand. Amy, desperate but determined, uses Dan's hand as a stepping stone to climb, slipping several times in the heavy rain and turbulent waves. Each failed attempt makes her heart pound harder, but she refuses to give up. Finally, gathering all her strength and focus, Amy clings to the side of the yacht and hauls herself onto the deck. The relief and triumph are overwhelming as she laughs and cries, exhausted but alive. For a moment, hope shines through the storm. Amy immediately runs to the cabin, scooping up her sobbing daughter Sarah and wrapping her in comfort. She lowers the gangway to help others, but when she looks back, Dan is still clinging to the glass shard, struggling against exhaustion and the storm. The choice is clear. He can save himself or face the consequences of the disaster that has already claimed their friends. Moments later, Amy spots a life jacket floating nearby and sees Dan's motionless silhouette in the water. The crushing weight of guilt and responsibility hits her. Dan appears to have surrendered himself to the sea, mirroring the tragic loss Amy suffered as a child. The storm rages on, and the tension reaches its peak as Amy must act once again to prevent another tragedy. Amy takes a deep breath, summoning every ounce of courage and determination she has left. She dives into the churning sea, battling the waves and her own fears, each stroke a reminder of the nightmares of her past. Flashbacks of her father drowning flood her mind, but instead of despair, they fuel her resolve. She reaches Dan, who is barely conscious, and wraps her arms around him, supporting his weight against the relentless pull of the water. Together they fight against the storm, inching toward the yacht with sheer grit. Every wave feels like a test of endurance, but Amy's fear transforms into focused determination, proving that survival often demands confronting the deepest fears head-on. As dawn breaks, the chaos of the night gives way to a quiet, tense calm. The sea is still rough, but Amy and Dan have made it back to the yacht's side. Exhausted, shivering, and bruised, they cling to the deck, gasping for breath, each heartbeat a victory over the ordeal. In the distance, the faint silhouette of a fishing boat appears, a glimmer of hope signaling that help might finally arrive. Amy gently lays Dan down, checking his condition, and reassures herself that they have survived against impossible odds. The ordeal has tested their limits, exposed their vulnerabilities, and shown the raw power of human resilience. For Amy, this moment is more than survival. It's a reclamation of courage she thought she had lost forever. Finally, the fishing boat approaches the yacht, its crew calling out and scanning the empty vessel. Amy, still holding Dan's hand, waves frantically, but the waves and distance make it almost impossible to attract attention. The little girl, Sarah, wakes up in the cabin, her cries piercing the quiet morning, reminding Amy of everything at stake. She realizes that despite the nightmare they survived, the aftermath is just as intense, reckoning with loss, fear, and the responsibility of protecting those she loves. In this fragile calm, Amy gathers her strength, determined to ensure that her family survives intact and that the lessons of this harrowing experience are not forgotten. The scene closes with her standing tall on the deck, looking out over the endless sea, a mix of exhaustion, relief, and hard-earned resolve etched on her face. Amy turns her gaze to Dan, lying motionless at her feet. Panic grips her for a moment, but she quickly recalls everything she's learned about survival and perseverance in the water. With trembling arms, she swims to him, remembering the trauma of losing her father and the strength it took to overcome it. She drags him toward the yacht, battling the waves, her own fear and exhaustion. Every stroke feels like a lifetime, but determination fuels her. By the time she reaches the boat, the sun is rising, painting the sky in muted oranges and pinks, signaling both the end of their nightmare and a new beginning. Amy hauls Dan aboard, finally collapsing from sheer relief, knowing that, for now, everyone she loves is alive. The ordeal has tested every ounce of courage, trust, and endurance they possess, leaving them forever changed. Morning breaks over the open sea, calm now after the storm. A fishing boat appears in the distance, its engine humming softly. Amy stands on the deck, exhausted but vigilant, scanning the horizon for help. Dan lies unconscious but stable at her feet, a testament to her bravery and resilience. The silence is heavy, broken only by the gentle lapping of waves and the distant calls of seabirds. Baby Sarah, safe inside the cabin, begins to stir and cry, reminding Amy of the stakes they just survived. She picks up her daughter, soothing her with the lullaby she had sung during the chaos. In this quiet aftermath, the group reflects on the fragility of life, the consequences of reckless decisions, and the unyielding human spirit that allowed them to endure the night. The open sea may have tested them, but it also revealed the depth of their courage and love. Amy looks out over the vast, endless water, the weight of what happened settling on her shoulders. She remembers her father's drowning years ago and feels the full circle of fear and survival. The nightmare of losing Dan and the others is still fresh, but she knows she must keep moving forward. Carefully, she tends to Dan, checking his pulse and making sure he can breathe, while reassuring herself that they both made it through the worst. The morning sun glints off the waves, a small symbol of hope after the darkness of the night. She reflects on the lessons learned, the importance of preparation, the unpredictability of nature, and how quickly a moment of fun can turn into a life-threatening ordeal. With Sarah in her arms, and Dan slowly regaining consciousness, Amy knows that survival is not just about strength, but about courage, quick thinking, and refusing to give up even when all seems lost. Finally, a small fishing boat appears on the horizon, cutting through the calm morning sea. Amy waves frantically, her voice hoarse from shouting, hoping someone will notice them. The boat approaches the empty yacht, circling it cautiously, but seeing no immediate response, it sails on. Sarah cries softly in the cabin, and Amy soothes her, holding her close while keeping a watchful eye on Dan. The ordeal has left them exhausted, but alive. This moment is a powerful reminder of human resilience. Even when trapped in an impossible situation, people can find the strength to survive and protect those they love. Amy stands on deck, looking out into the distance, a mix of relief, sorrow, and determination on her face. She has faced her deepest fears, confronted the forces of nature, and emerged stronger. The open sea, once a source of terror, now feels like a vast canvas of survival and hope. With Dan finally rescued and Sarah safe, Amy reflects on everything that has happened, the mistakes, the losses, and the courage it took to survive. She knows that life can be unpredictable, just like the open sea, and that fear can be both a cage and a motivator. This moment serves as the emotional climax, where the tension of survival meets the quiet relief of endurance. The story ends with Amy standing tall on the deck, a symbol of resilience, while the morning sun glimmers on the water, signaling a new beginning. It's a reminder that even after tragedy and chaos, hope and perseverance can guide us back to safety. The lessons from this harrowing experience, bravery, quick thinking, and the will to protect loved ones, leave a lasting impression on both the characters and the audience. This concludes the story recap. If you enjoyed this tense and thrilling journey, leave a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more exciting movie recaps.